Behavioural economics is very much about what we call heuristics. It's like one of those mental shortcuts your brain uses to make decisions. Because essentially your brain is lazy. Your brain will always find the easiest way to make a decision or to make a judgment. Because it's saving energy. Again, probably quite good evolutionary reasons why it works that way. So we're kind of hardwired. We're always taking these shortcuts. Just to give you some examples, there's one of the heuristics I'd say talk about is anchoring. A good example of anchoring, essentially I give you 1 minute of information, I might ask you something completely different. Your answer or response to that is often influenced by what I just told you. A good example was they've done a little work with students in the US, and the first question was, how happy are you? Second question was, how often have you been on a date in the last 6 months? Very little correlation, no correlation between those two responses. Flip the order of the question. How many times have you been on a date in the last 6 months? How happy are you? You find a high correlation. They've done estimating populations of cities. They ask you, what's the last 3 digits of your mobile phone number? I don't know, 248. Then they go, okay, I just want you to give me an estimate of the population of Dubbo. And what they're finding is there's a correlation between the last 3 digits of someone's telephone number and their estimates they're given. And again, basically your brain's hardwired. It's got one thing floating around, will influence how it makes decisions about other things. There's some of the availability, perception of risk. The more easily you can bring something to mind, the more likely you think it is. Again, they've done research and sort of experiments about people's perception of health risks. Now, people in the US are convinced that they're far more likely to die in a tornado than they are from an asthma attack. The fact is, you're 20 times more likely to die from an asthma attack than you are from a tornado. Why? Why does your brain think that, oh, you're more likely to die in a tornado? Because it's easier to think of. You might say the same thing about plane crashes. Though statistically we know dying in a plane crash is really, really unlikely. You're far more likely to die in a road accident in Sydney. But yet our fear, the way our brain is hardwired is because it can bring examples of plane crashes much more easily to life, much more emotionally, and therefore it alters your whole perception of risks. Another area they talk about is defaults. Now, again, your brain is lazy. Your brain will always just take the easiest route, and default's a really good illustration of that. Where our previous office was, there's a really nice pub in Surrey Hills. It's kind of nice, a little bit grungy, used to have live music on, kind of pub, you walk in and buy a drink, you give them $10, they give you $2 change, hand it to you, you put it in your pocket. So if you like, the default decision for that exchange was, they give me the change, I put it in my pocket. If I want to give them a tip, I must make a conscious effort to think and do to give them a tip. It got taken over by, is it Justin Hems? Justin Hems, nightclub guru, so they all got a bit uber cool and Mexican. So now what they do, when you go and buy a drink for $8, they put the $2 in a tray. They push the tray over to the bar. What have they done? They have changed the default of that decision. The default now is to leave the money in the tray. You have to make a conscious effort to take the money out and put it in your pocket. And what do? You start thinking about it. She's kind of cute. I don't want her thinking I'm a real cheap bastard. Oh, look at me, people behind me. What would they think? What would my friends think? So therefore, and your brain gets really easy overloaded, what do? You leave the money on the tray. A really, really good example of using what we call choice architecture to change the default, to change behaviour. Imagine as a marketer, you were given the brief. We want you to increase tips in this bar by 50%. Now, imagine the amount of advertising and communication you'd have to do. You'd have to spend millions of dollars in this one bar just to make that massive shift in attitude and behaviour. But just by simply changing the choice architecture that costs nothing, imagine the massive input. And there's lots and lots of examples of default. Really good work in, particularly a lot of work in the healthcare space. Organ donation cards. The US, some states in the US, to donate your organs, you need to tick the box, say, yes, I tick the box, I will become an organ donor. Other states, you've got to tick the box to say you don't want to be an organ donor. There's a difference between about 80 and 30% of people who sign up for it. In New South Wales currently, you have to tick the box to say you want to be an organ donor. If they change that, you could probably increase the number by 20, 30, 40, 50%. Again, your brain is lazy. It doesn't want to think. It's pre-programmed to choose the easiest way. Other heuristics, framing, buy a t-shirt at $20. Buy a t-shirt at $20 in Kmart, oh, it's pretty expensive. Buy a $50 t-shirt in David Jones, oh, that's a real bargain. What's changed? It's a t-shirt, but even the same t-shirt, the same brand, it's the framing of that decision. Again, a really interesting experiment done around menus in restaurants. Let's say the most expensive item on the menu is about $30. They find the average spend per meal is about $20. All they do was they put a $40 item on the menu, and even if no one chooses that $40 item, the average spend increases to, let's say, $25. What have they done? They've changed the choice architecture, what we call the framing of it. The way you interpret that price point has changed. Nothing's changed about the value equation, about the product, what you're getting, or how much that money means to you. All they've done is change the context of the decision making. So, a very, very rich, powerful area to explore.